Hi there, and welcome to the Barbara Young channel. Now my next project is, well, one I've done before. Now recently I made the Kwik Sew 4102, this one, and I remember saying, will I make this top again? No.
I lied.
I actually have put this one on a hanger. Now oddly enough, this is from a comment, and someone said that what they do is when they have a bit of a problem or a top's not quite what they expected, they put it on a hanger and leave it for a while and just look at it until they can decide what it is that was either wrong or that they weren't quite sure about with the project, and can they do something about it. And my Lima top that I made, which I'm quite happy with, it's come out really nice in the end, but I just couldn't get to grips with the construction of it. It's just sat over there on a hanger staring at me, and I was looking at it and kept seeing it and thinking about it, thinking I do want to do it again, but I want it to be easier. And after a while I had a plan. I had an idea how I could make it easy and what I could do to change the construction and the order of construction, what I'm doing to make this pattern actually work easier, or at least easier for me. So I'm going to make it again. Now I've actually already done my mock-ups, and I spent some time doing this, trying to work out what it was I wanted to change. Now I didn't film that because it was a lot of fiddling around and a lot of messing about to try and make it work. But effectively what I wanted to do was to get rid of that neckband, and I have effectively done that. This one's a bit rough, but I've effectively worked what would be the measurement of that neckband into the yoke, and then where it meets the front section, that's turned in. Well, it's a little bit odd. I'll try to explain it as I make it. But what I also end up with is this front band piece. Instead of it doing two pieces, I've extended the width of this front sections, so this is effectively just a facing piece that goes on. So I only need to cut two facing pieces, one for either side, so there's a lot less pieces and hopefully a lot less work. And also things like, instead of having lots of ruching up, I'm putting some darts in the back, even though it's not really noticeable there, but that's the plan. I did it again just to make sure I can get that neck band or that neck section nice and neat. And as you can see from this one, this mock-up, I think I've worked it out. So I think this is a case of getting on, making the main project again, but with this new process and this new way of doing it, and seeing how it comes out, and hopefully it'll come out much nicer. But even this neck, see, I haven't got the bulk there on the neckband now or on the shoulders. It just looks so much nicer. So without further ado, I better get on and get marking up this fabric, get cutting it out, and see if I can get it together in a much easier process than the original. So let's quickly go over the pieces, and I'll just explain what I've been doing to change them. This looks like the same piece, but I've actually increased this neck area to account for what would have been the neckband. And on the front yoke piece, that's the back yoke, on the front yoke piece, and this is now wider again to account for that original neckband piece that would have been on there. So I don't need, hopefully, a neckband. Then on the bottom of this is like a skirt piece. Now this is the front and back. Now they look like the same pieces, only I've cut them quite short. That's material restrictions that have made it to that length rather than wanting that length. And basically it looks like the same piece, but what I've done is actually cut out the smallest size for this, because I wanted less ruching. I didn't want to gather as much material between these 2 points, so I've made it smaller, but at the same time this bit here is actually going to be where the buttons would go. So we've got that piece, and then it'll have the facing on the other side. And with the back piece, which is cut on the fold, again I wanted less gathering, so instead of putting gathers in, I'm now going to put 2 pleats in on here, so there's no gathering, it's just pleats. And of course it's not as wide, so again I'm using less material to make that, which also means that when I come to do the button placket and neck banding piece, I don't have a neck band piece, I just have this, and this is a facing piece, so I only have to cut 2 of these. I don't have to cut any neck facing pieces, and I don't have to do any of the convoluted stitch it on, stitch the other bit and fold it round. This is literally just a facing piece, get stitched on and turned all the way over until it's in there to form that double layer. I will interface this piece, so I've actually got less pieces and hopefully less seams to mess about with in doing this. So let's start getting it together. Well, I've got all my pieces cut out and they're all marked up and ready to go now. So next thing will be put them together. But having changed everything, I've had to write down and work out a new order of construction, because, you know, everything is different. It's not as it was from the original instructions. So these are my new order of construction notes. So this is what I'll be following, and hopefully it'll come out all right. First up, the interfacing, which is going to go on the what I call the button placket facing piece, whatever. That's where it's got to go. So that's the first thing. So now I'm on to step 2, which is actually based in those pleats and some gathers, which is basically the same as previously before any changes have been made, which is on the front we've got the gathers we want to put up in the top on the front pleat, on the front of it. Front, back? Have I said back? No, this is the back. What am I talking about? Pleats, that's what I'm talking about. And then the pleats on the back in the top piece. And I've also changed what I'm doing with regards to the back bottom or the back skirt piece. As you can see, it is quite short. It's just going to lengthen the top a little bit. But I've decided to put in darts in there, so I've just marked them up. So that's the next part along with the other darts, and putting the gathering stitches in for the front section. Better get on with that, because I'm sure that'll take a little bit of time, because they can be a bit tricky. So next on my list is actually attaching what's called the skirt section to the main bodice. So here I've got the back bodice piece with my pleat done in the top there, and I've also got what is the skirt piece. And yes, I know I've said it before, it's short, it's just materials, it's what I've got. So, but I put pleating in there, 2 double pleats on either side, so that now is the right width to sew to the bottom of the bodice piece. And the same with the front bodice pieces. I'm going to stitch the bottom section on now, which is completely out of order from the original, but that's how I've got to do it for this one, so better get on with that. Well, I've got the bottom section attached now to the front and the back. So this is the front section, this is the left. You see there's that bit of, I don't know, ruching sort of detail there, but it's much more minor. There's only a little bit of gathering in there, which is, I think, is much nicer to have that rather than lots of gathers. Makes it sit a little better, in my opinion. And the darts there at the top, but obviously they'll sit better once I've actually stitched the yoke on there. That's the left one and the right side. Both look about the same, which is good. I want them to be the same. And then there's the back, which is this piece. Now, obviously there's the pleat in the top there, but then you've got the pleats in the bottom section, which are completely different because it's meant to have gathers, but I've changed that completely. So that's the fronts and backs effectively finished. So what's next? Well, I managed to get the that facing piece on, or call it the, I'm going to call it the button placket facing. It's this piece on the edge here that gives this nice edge that's on there now, which means that this part where the buttons are going to go is nice and yeah, it's nice and tidy, and actually a lot tidier than if I'd done it the original way. And there is actually less bulk in here as well, so I think that'll make it easier to actually do the buttonholes and put the buttons on this section. Yeah, I quite like that. It's quite nice, I think. Really looks lovely. Yeah, and obviously both pieces, because it'll overlap. Now the next section, according to my notes, next step is the yokes. So getting the yokes ready, and then effectively using the yokes. Then the next step after that is attaching the yokes using that roll-up burrito method to get the fronts and backs together. So, yoke preparation, better get on with it. So it's now time to get my yokes together, which is the main fabric and my yoke facing, which is in this case going to be an alternate fabric because fabric shortage. I only have enough to do the outer, so the facing piece is a different material. It still feels like a cotton, but it is a different material. But it's on the inside, so it shouldn't be a problem. But they are both the same. So start off with is the shoulder seam that attaches the front yoke to the back yoke. Well, I've got the yokes together. This is obviously the main material and my facing piece. So now I just need to use that sort of stitch on or roll up method and then turn through. There is an important step while I'm doing this part when it comes to the neckline. I'll show you that when I get to it. So I've sewn in the yoke at the back piece and I rolled it all up and I pinned it, and this is where it actually differs from the normal way, I suppose, because what I've got to do is I now have to stitch along the one top, turn it, stitch around the neck bend, the neck part to this point, and then stitch the other front or shoulder piece, whatever it is, for the yoke, the other side of the yoke in. And I have to do that really in one continuous stitch. So it's a bit tricky. So I found that really I have to mark it. I put little crosses where I need to turn, and I need to stop exactly on that dot, because if I don't, then when I pull it through it won't sit right. It'll either be pulled out a bit, or there'll be like a little pleat sitting over it because it's not been able to pull out properly. So I have to be really quite accurate on what I'm doing when I'm sewing in this section. So I've taken my time with pinning it up, but now it is time to sew it in, hopefully get this right. And here we are, the top turn through. Now I do have to apologise that I haven't got the actual turn through. I did record it, but technical hitch, call it, the video clip, I know it's corrupted or I did something wrong, but it was just basically unusable, which is a shame, because that's the part I really wanted to show, was me turning it through and ending up with the finished neckline. But basically once I'd pinned it, I stitched along, hand along the neckline, so, and that neckline along there, all in one continuous stitch. Then I trimmed the seam, notched this seam as well, so when I turn it through it's going to sit nice and neat, and this is the end result. And the other thing I was trying to look out for was this part here, where this this button placket would have met what was the neckband. There's a bit of a knobbly bit, I don't know if you can see that, but I tried to make sure I kept that to a minimum, because that was one of the concerns, that as it pulled through, if that wasn't quite right, it would either pucker up or would stick out and not look very good. But I think it's come out quite well. And then all I've done is top stitched along the whole of it to keep it in place, and I think it's come out really quite nicely. As you can see, there's this much flatter, you've not got that neckband piece. This is one nicer flatter edge that's going to sit against the neckline and the shoulder, much nicer than it would have done had I had that continuous neckband in there like it is on the original. So there we go, I think it's come out really quite well at the top there. So next up is putting the bias binding on the sleeves, and then I can sew up the sides. After that, nearly home and dry would be to hem it and put buttons on it. But before I get there, let's get these armholes done and the sides sewn up. Well, after all the alterations and amendments and the reworkings, it is now finally done. So let's have a look. And there you go, one finished top. Now, I might be quite biased because it's my top, but I think this looks really great. I think it's turned out really nice. And even though it does look, well, just like the previous one that I made, it is actually significantly different. So there you go, the Kwik Sew 4102. Well, sort of the remake, as it were, because obviously I've made it not once but twice. This one being the first one, which is a nice top, and I do like it, but it's as it were followed the rules, of which some of the things on there I wasn't so happy about. This neckband being the main thing, but that's just the way it is. And of course there was a lot more of this ruching up going on the actual top, which I wasn't so keen of, but you know, I was happy enough with it, and it is a nice top. This one on the other hand I think is much nicer, not just because I have managed to work out a way of altering it to make it better in my opinion and easier to put together, but because I just like it better. It's still the same size and it's the same style, but its construction obviously is completely different. It's gone together in a different order, and I think there's some nice touches that are a little different, like the pleating on the back rather than the ruching up. Only having a much smaller amount of ruching up on the front seems to just sit a little better on me, and obviously not having that bulk on the neckband. I think that's absolutely brilliant myself. I really love it, even though you've got this line, this difference here that you don't have on this one, but I'm happy with it. To me, it's come out quite well, much better than I was expecting really, so that's a win for me. Two tops from the same pattern, from the same material, but actually very different. So there you go, a good rework, as it were. Well, thank you very much for watching my video, and I look forward to seeing my next video. Bye.